Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about International Women's Day, or more specifically, all the propaganda. And wow, do we have an avalanche of feminist propaganda to wade through. Now, there are certain sort of social media sites where you'd expect this sort of propaganda to be prevalent, and everywhere you look and all over the place. You expect to see it in government departments and in universities and in some of the more virtue signalling type places. But you wouldn't necessarily expect to see it, or a deluge of it, more to the point, on business, social media business type sites. Now, I'm looking at one quite prominent business site where allegedly, at least, all the top stories, all the leading stories, all of them are about International Women's Day and about feminist issues. So on a normal day, pretty much every story is posted by a man about male things like manufacturing or business stuff, finance and so on. But on certain days and occasions, and on certain issues or news items, it's all given over to activist feminists, not business people. They're not in business at all. They're feminist activists, ranging from lesbian rights groups to pink and blue haired, raving lunatics, green groups, and so on. So there's a vast disconnect here. The men are still talking about business on the business website. A bit of virtue signaling from some of the big multinationals that are doing scams and fronting for the skilled immigration, doing scams to bring in peasants under manufactured and invented skill shortages. Look, we've advertised and we just can't find anybody. We've got to bring in 10,000 illiterate peasants to fill this skills shortage. But aside from that, it's mostly sensible business, but certainly not at the moment. Certainly not with International Women's Day. So I'm going to go through the stories here. Now, I did a little look into the background of these women who are fronting these stories, and they're kind of what you expect. A very generous oversupply of lesbians, Jewish lesbians in handy oversupply, and the rest of the pink haired and the green haired, placard waving, climate change type bimbos, that sort of thing. But here's the big difference between this and this caught my eye here, was the big difference between previous years. In previous years, it would be United Nations studies say, or the leading women's activist group has claimed, or there'd be an NGO, Amnesty International has said women are oppressed, and there'd be that type of that would be the justifications. That would be the facts they were putting forward. But in almost every story here, that's changed. That's no longer the source for the alleged facts. And they're not facts, they're just bullshit propaganda. But in this instance, in nearly every one of them, the World Economic Forum is cited as the source. The World Economic Forum says that not enough women are in management positions. The World Economic Forum says that more women need to be in the workplace. And the fact they're not shows that it's oppression by Hitler, and so on. So in each instance, the World Economic Forum is cited as the authority. Now, the World Economic Forum, you could not get a more politicized bunch of goons and hacks with an agenda than the World Economic Forum. And yet in every one, all bar one of these radical feminist articles, the World Economic Forum is cited as the expert opinion on if women are getting oppressed or not. So I'll just go. Here's a collection of them. There were too many for me to cover them all. But so the coronavirus epidemic or pandemic has created uniquely economic uncertainty for women, in as much as they say it is not allowing the gender gap, whatever, they don't explain what the gender gap is here, but is not allowing the gender gap, or is preventing the gender gap from closing, according to the World Economic Forum. Now, if you go to the World Economic Forum study, they've then in turn subcontracted that. It's not a fucking study, it's just a bit of bullshit propaganda. They've subcontracted it out to a reliable NGO that's, you know, run by George Soros or someone like that, that then produces this nonsense, and they in turn, you know, use references from radical lesbian activists who've made various claims. So they're running a scam of a round robin here. So they'll get a radical lesbian gender studies activist to say all women are oppressed. Then they can all quote that study. Then they can quote each other. So they've always got an authoritative source to say, we didn't say it, they said it. But so that absolves them. To, hey, the professor, the gender studies lesbian, angry professor that hates all people, she said it. So we're relying on her as the independent voice. You know, they play that sort of game, which is, of course, blatant lying in my view. So they're talking about the top 10 world economies here, and so they're saying that I don't know, it must be gross domestic product per capita, I'm guessing here, because they tend the largest. So the top 10 world economies, Australia and places like New Zealand aren't in that. So I don't know, straight away there's lies there. Now they're claiming that Australia has fallen well down the list when it comes to workforce participation of women. So they're saying that Australia was doing well before COVID, but now they're slipping well down the ranks, and this is because they've had a centre-right government for so long. So it's all those damn fucking fascist fucking Nazis that are holding women back. Again, the World Economic Forum is cited as the source for this. Now they then switch a pivot around and say men have a majority of leadership positions around the world, and the barriers and challenges that prevent women from being in senior management have to be removed, says the World Economic Forum. Now, what that's got to do with the World Economic Forum is beyond me, but then the article here opines the sort of conversations and policies that these evil straight white males must have before there's recognisable progress towards gender equity. So gender equity isn't explained, or what they mean by it, but again, the World Economic Forum is relied upon to underwrite this with their alleged research. Now they make a funny claim here that about the what they refer to as the visibility gap here between men and women. So giving women junior management roles is no good. The most prestigious, best paying roles must be 50% women, and if it's not, then it's oppression, it's fascism, it's Nazism, it's Hitler, and if they're 49, damn Hitler's everywhere. So again, the World Economic Forum. Now the World Economic Forum has gathered together the top women voices, which is heavily overrepresented by lesbians and Jewish lesbians. And they're supposed to be the ones that are going to drive the next wave of change. Now, the implication in the article is women are being horribly oppressed, cruelly oppressed, being torn to pieces by Hitler. And we're talking about women who are in the richest countries in the world, who have the most leisure time of any women in the world, the highest standard of living in any women in the world, but somehow they're the most oppressed women in the world. I'd love to understand that one. Now here's another one. This is not a Jewish lesbian. This is a lady who she came to Australia when she was a young child, preschool age. So I don't know, 2 or 3 years old or something like that. and she comes from the subcontinent, the Indian subcontinent. And so she has been hired, given a government job on taxpayer funding, to run around telling Australians how racist we are and how evil we are oppressing women. So we've got to import somebody from another country who's brown and telling us white folks how bad and evil we are. That makes sense. That's a good idea. Wow, why didn't I think of that? So they she's talking in this article at least about what they call financial gender equity, if I've understood that correctly. So the argument is that if there's any change in the structure of the economy, whether it be through inflation or anything else, it means, according to, again, the World Economic Forum, that women suffer more. Now, there's a mention here that when the economy shrinks or stagnates, that a lot of the job, what they don't say here, they just say it affects women and affects black women or black and brown women disproportionately. So they're saying that she's saying, again, according to the World Economic Forum, that these women are more likely to get laid off. They're more likely to be in part-time or casual employment. And so they suffer disproportionately. But that would be included anyone who's in part-time or casual employment. If the economy stagnates or goes into reverse, then those sort of jobs typically are the first that are affected. For example, in a buoyant economy, and I see this just in that town that I live in, if the economy is buoyant, you can have, in terms of casuals and full-timers, one of the biggest local cafes can employ 30, 40 people. But when times are tight, that may drop to 10 people. And it can be the same for, say, pizza delivery, where when things are really humming along, they can have half a dozen pizza delivery people every night, or most nights. But when things are quiet, one pizza delivery guy is enough. So that's the same area. To say that's uniquely an issue for women is quite absurd. It would affect anybody. The argument that there's more women in that sort of employment, thus it therefore affects them disproportionately, and then to multiply that back into a gender pay gap is deceitful in the extreme and patently absurd. And this sort of stuff. Again, this has been placed on a business website that has editors and fact checkers and so on, and yet somehow this rubbish gets through without so much a question or a red pen. The other thing is the government prevents these women from working because the lower income women choose to have children, and therefore they have to stay at home to look after the children. So therefore the government is actively preventing them from working. I don't understand that one. They're also saying that when migrants come to Australia and can't speak a lick of English, and by the way, refuse to attend English classes, that they have lower paying jobs and therefore are being exploited. So again, the World Economic Forum is cited as the so-called core study. I went to look at this study and it doesn't talk about this stuff at all, not that I could see. So that reference to the study is just pure nonsense and just absolute crap. They also claim that when cost of living increases, that women are more vulnerable to the cost of living increases than men. Now, I assume they mean single women or women with children who, the single mothers and that sort of stuff. It's a bit vague here, but these assertions that are made, it affects women severely, disproportionately. Women are oppressed, women suffer, but there's no citations, there's no proof or evidence here. And the only the World Economic Forum citations they claim to be relying on don't exist or not covering this topic anyway. So you can, but again, where were the fact checkers? Where were the editors on that? Now that particular website, I've put stuff on it, or me and my colleagues have put stuff on it, and we've had questions come back on, quite detailed questions as well, technical type questions. I mean, and one time, we put something on about hiring, and within minutes they came back to us. What about explain this? Where's your citation for that? So they're capable of being quite rigorous. And if you're a straight white male, you do get rigorously checked. But provided you're a purple-haired lesbian, they won't check you. And that's, again, the double standard we see everywhere, all over the world. So they're allowing the propaganda to go through without so much as a sideways glance. So, and these women, they're who write these articles, they go, we are oppressed, we suffer. And so they're not coming at it from the position of an impartial academic who's done a study and is presenting facts. They're, hey girls, it's all girls together here. Again, it's clearly propaganda. So, so they're saying that women, because the government either has to make men stay at home to look after the children, or has to provide a equivalent to a wage that the woman would have earned, so she can stay and look after the children, or they have to provide childcare, high quality childcare for free. So that's the claim here. Now, depending on how you look at it, let's look at a woman who her job is working in a sandwich shop, cutting sandwiches out the back. And that's the lowest of the lowest sort of paid jobs, and that's the job she's got. Now, why should the government pay for somebody like that's a job that can be easily replaced by anybody? Why should the government or anybody pay a salary or an income equivalent to what she would have made? So say she's working, 30 hours a week. So she's going to make something like 30,000, give or take 30,000 bucks a year. This is before any tax or anything's deducted. But so these people tend to have big families, and so the government has to pay her to stay at home every time she procreates, in a job that can be replaced by anybody. Now, if the woman happens to be the world's foremost, aeronautical engineer or rocket scientist or something like that, then I would accept that you want to keep that woman in the workplace because her skills are so hard to replace. And so there should be some sort of, ideally, there should be some sort of payment to encourage her to return to the workforce, something like that. That I kind of understand. But the way they've phrased it here is women are entitled to this. There's no question or debate or discussion. They're entitled to it. And the less skilled is the woman, the less skilled a woman is in any particular industry, the less she speaks English, the more money should be thrown at her. And I don't accept that for a minute. Now, then it comes back to World Economic Forum saying gender parity is worse than it's ever been in modern times. So the World Economic Forum, again, cited as the expert in this, saying that to close the gender gap around the world will take something up to 150 years, between 130 and 150 years to do it. Now, they pivot between talking about a first world country and the conditions, and then saying, then suddenly the next paragraph they've switched to talking about a third world country, but they haven't stated that. They don't state, hey, this is first world, that's third world, and rejig the text and the message. They just go straight to it. So it appears to be that they're talking about first world countries in all situations. Oh, no, it's going to take 150 years to close the gender. Oh, fuck, women are so oppressed. Goddamn fucking fascist Nazis. We have to fight back. So, and then they switch again here. So what has to change? What has to change is the behavior of men. men's behavior. We have to control men, change their behavior, because they're the evil ones. We have to control them. We have to control them, whether it's the divorce courts, whether it's every sort of all behavioral interaction, everything. Men have to be controlled. Well, wait a minute. Do women have to be controlled? No, women have to be given choices and entitlements. It's men who have to be controlled because they're the fucking Nazis. Okay. So gender parity is is going backwards according to the World Economic Forum again. Gee, these guys are geniuses. So societal expectations have to change. Hiring practices have to change. There has to be more affirmative action. I mean, there's affirmative action. There has to be more affirmative action. But hold on a minute. Women are in most big companies now. Women are being guaranteed 50% of the new employment. It's not enough. It's not enough. Workplace policies have to change because women are being oppressed. Did you know that 1 million women are raped every nanosecond, every day, in every office all around the world? And we've got to stop those men. We have to control these men, those damn fucking fascist rapists. The cost of living crisis is uniquely impacts women. It doesn't have much of an effect on men, but it affects women. So that's another piece of oppression that we have to fight back against. Fight it back against the man. Now, let's have a look at the wider issues here with cost of living crisis. What's brought that? Globalist World Economic Forum policies have created this cost of living crisis. It's solely down to that and that only. The World Economic Forum globalist policies have created all the cost of living increases that we're seeing, or 99% of them. But that's not mentioned here. It's just something that just somehow appeared out of the ether, and that affects women. So women are now entitled to even more affirmative action than they were. So next article is, this is again a government-paid activist here. They're talking about people that live in remote Pacific islands. And a lot of that work is whatever work's available there is going out and fishing in the small hours that women don't do. It's working in like wood chip mills and cutting lumber, quite heavy work that women don't do. So they're saying that men in those Pacific islands make more money than women. Which is given the nature of the only available employment there. I mean, these are quite poor societies. A lot of them are living hand to mouth subsistence. Again, that's not mentioned. It's just asserted that men make more. There's a problem. There must be a problem. Well, who can say there is no? Men make more money, are paid more money than women. That means there must be something wrong. That there must be some issue, something dysfunctional in society we have to change. It requires policy. It requires lesbians. It requires black lesbians with pink hair to go in there and change it and tell those men, put those fucking Nazi men in their place. So, and this is in broad statements. This means that women in the islands, they're missing out. They're being denied forced. They're in cages, for Christ's sake. They're missing out on health and security, freedom, and they're free. The experience of freedom they're missing out on. Holy fuck, this is bad. And there's a couple of more articles go along those lines. Here's another one here. Companies have to recognise the contribution of women in their organisations. But wait a minute, who says they don't? Well, whatever recognition they're giving to women isn't enough. There has to be more. Women are entitled to more recognition. And they have to ensure the equitable participation of women. And it must go far beyond the current situation. So all the systems have to be changed, and the behaviour of men has to be changed and controlled. Men have to be controlled. Their behaviour has to change. Only then can situation improve for women. But what about women working harder and longer hours and applying for different jobs, choosing different? No. Women are entitled. It's men who have to change. Oh, okay. All right. Well, there you go. Now, it's a sustainable participation of women. We must change. Men must change to support inclusion. Oh, wait a minute, who says they don't? We've got affirmative action policies everywhere you look, in high school and college, university, in the workplace, government departments. I mean, there's affirmative action and equal opportunity things everywhere you look. How can you say, well, it's not enough? Because if it was enough, women would have exactly half of all the outcomes. The outcomes are different. That's because there's something dysfunctional in society and because women are being oppressed by those fucking fascist men. And we must change everything to support inclusion. And leaders have to change. Leaders have to be inclusive. They must lead more inclusively. I don't know what the fuck that means. Which is supported by the World Economic Forum. And this all has to be measured. But why do we measure the situation now as to what women, the jobs they apply for and the hours they work? No, not that measured. The outcomes, only the outcomes have to be measured. The inputs and the causes are irrelevant. We're just going to say that's all because of fascist Nazi men. But the outcomes, we're measuring those alone. Now, this is more here about the World Economic Forum, their papers, and here's one here that how to get women to go back to the workforce. This is a paper going on that. So now the implication is that they're all highly skilled women who leave to have children. And they find that when they want to go back to the workforce, this paper asserts, when they want to go back to the workforce, that they have to accept a more junior role than they had because they've missed out, 5 or 6 years, whatever it is, work experience and so on. And women don't like the idea of having to report to somebody younger than them, and that particularly irritates them. So they want to be able to, even after 5 or 6 years out of the workforce, they want to be able to come back in at the same level that they were and having been paid to stay at home in the meantime. Now that's very, very fanciful, but again, the World Economic Forum says this is the panacea, paid maternity leave. And part of this, they're claiming, is that if the employer has to pay the woman a maternity leave salary, that they're more likely to re-employ that woman or reinsert her into the working environment at a more senior level, so they can get more value out of her, given how much they've invested in her. That's the sort of the strangled logic here. I do see the logic in that, but it doesn't apply in this instance. You're out of the labour market by choice, and before you have children, you think you'd sit down, with your partner and say, okay, can we afford this, and how stable is your job, and go through the issues before procreating. And that's a decision each family needs to make. Now, the cost of living is far higher now than it was. Rents have increased at 3 times the rate of incomes, for example. Same for energy. In fact, the rate's even higher. So clearly there are cost of living pressures, but none of that is due. All of that rather is due to the globalist World Economic Forum and the policies they push. All of it is because of that. Nearly every cent of the cost of living increase is because of the World Economic Forum and their treachery, if you like, to the Western white diaspora. So should businesses be forced to pay money to women because of what the World Economic Forum has done? And now the World Economic Forum is putting out papers like this saying, again, they've got nothing to do with us. We didn't contribute to those price increases, but it's all those fascist Nazis not giving women a fair shake or break. That's the chutzpah, and that's insane. So there's the various thresholds and tests and so on before women can get this payment either from the government, the maternity leave payment. And the argument here is there shouldn't be any threshold at all. Any woman who wants it at any time can get it for any reason. So, procreation, of course, but for any situation, they're arguing, or so the World Economic Forum argues, that means more women will be in the workforce, which will add, gazillions to the gross domestic product, which of course is absolute nonsense. There's no citing for that I could find. But I just wanted to give you a quick run through on this insane feminist propaganda. None of the story, not one fucking story can stand up to even 5 minutes of scrutiny. In fact, not even 5 minutes. The reports that you click on either don't exist, or they're about a completely different topic, or the reference is so strangled as to be irrelevant. This is all insane, ridiculous propaganda. And by the way, written by women who behave like they're first-year sociology students in college. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.